My name is Chris Whiteford, and I'm an industrial IT designer who's been working with Grantek for about 15 years from our Toronto office. On today's episode of You Asked, We Answered, we're going to take a look at an issue that has come up industry-wide when it comes to booting thin clients. Today, by popular demand, we're going to review the importance of network configuration for PXE booting of thin clients. You Asked, We Answered is a series where the Grantek team discusses and answers questions asked by our clients, LinkedIn followers, and others in our industry. To talk about this issue, I'm joined by my colleague, Nate.
Thanks, Chris. I'm excited to be here. I'm Nate Strach, and I've worked as a MAS engineer with Grantek out of our Chicago office for around 9 years. This topic is an interesting one. We see it come up quite a bit.
First, one of the most important things for us to understand is all the devices that are involved in this architecture and what each of them provides. We have about 4 main components to achieve our goal of PXE booting thin clients. We typically will have a DHCP server used to provide IP addressing information and thin client boot instructions. We'll have one or more remote servers to service the interfaces and applications that the thin clients use. And we typically have 3 layers of switching. We have our core switching, our distribution layer, and then our edge or access layer, which then provides the last mile connectivity down to our thin clients.
Thanks, Chris. That was a great overview of the devices and the respective roles. So then getting back to the question of how do I set up my switches in an OT architecture that uses PXE booting, thin clients, and multiple layers of switching? What are some of the gotchas on these switch settings that can cause issues?
So the issue at hand really is ensuring that all the components in your systems are configured correctly. Often the focus is on the server infrastructure and the workstations.
Yes, but it's also important to have your network configured correctly too, so your devices can become active as quickly as possible. If they won't start up fast enough, this can lead to production, maintenance, and support issues. An improperly configured network can lead to frustration, as it wastes time across departments to troubleshoot these issues, and critical infrastructure devices won't work and can harm production. Issues affecting production may not look like networking issues at first. Can you explain this a bit more, Chris?
In a modern OT infrastructure, we can have a number of different departments involved in their support. When we see issues arise, it can sometimes be a challenge to find the root of the issue. Due to the complexity of some of these issues, often they can be hidden by other factors ongoing in the system. Working with multiple groups to track down an issue can burn a lot of time. Overall understanding of our OT networks and systems is key to finding and fixing issues when they crop up.
What benefits does the user see for deploying thin clients?
That's a great question. The biggest reason is that they're going to see things like reduced hardware costs, easier maintenance and replacement efforts in the event of an issue with any of the hardware. They also get centralized management of assets and the applications and interfaces that are provided to their users. When you compare that to a more like traditional fat client setup, some of the biggest gains are around having to support individually the deployed hardware and installed operating systems and applications. Overall, by deploying thin clients, it's really about reducing the total time and cost involved in maintaining and supporting your deployed devices. But circling back, it's important that we have a properly configured network to support those thin clients.
So then, getting back to the question of how do I set up my switches in an OT architecture that uses PXE booting, thin clients, and multiple layers of switches, what are some of the gotchas on these switch settings that can cause issues?
The issue at hand really is about ensuring that all the components in your systems are configured correctly. Often the focus is on server infrastructure and workstations, but the switches need to start forwarding traffic as soon as possible after a device comes online. Most managed switches will default to a mode that takes longer to do this.
Yes, I agree, Chris. It is important to have your network configured correctly so your devices can become active as quickly as possible. If they don't start up fast enough, this can lead to production, maintenance, and support issues. Issues affecting production may not even look like networking issues at the surface. Can you explain this a bit more, Chris?
In modern OT infrastructure, we can have a number of different departments involved in supporting the systems. When issues arise, it can sometimes be a challenge to find the root of the issue. Due to the complexity of issues, they can often be masked or hidden by other factors in the systems. Working with multiple groups to track down an issue can burn a lot of time. Overall understanding of your OT networks and systems is the real key in finding and fixing issues when they crop up.
Thanks, Chris. And if we can use that as a takeaway and build on it as a lessons learned, It sounds like having your teams working closely is an important way to deal with issues as they arise. What else can we learn from this, Chris?
We can see that working to follow industry best practices for configurations is also a great way to do it. And helping to ensure that there's consistent configurations across the entire company is a great step. Grantek is able to help our clients with this. Our experience in every part of the OT landscape, from controls to networking to cybersecurity, lets us help our customers ensure that their systems are built, configured, installed, and functioning as securely, quickly, and efficiently as possible. Not only can Grantek sell you Systech and Solutions industrial PCs to use for your Rockwell Thin Manager, Thin Client deployments, but we can also provide real value in helping ensure that your entire OT infrastructure is ready for success for a thin client deployment or beyond.
Great points, Chris. Granteks are the expert at doing this. That is the real value. Grantek doesn't just sell you hardware. We also ensure the deployment of that hardware is optimal with best practices to set you up for success. And this was a really great conversation, Chris. And thank you for all for watching today on You Ask, We Answered. If you have another question for Grantek, please include it in the comments or email info@grantek.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.